Hey guys, I'm Taryn and welcome to Taryns Business Hub. So today I wanted to speak about a personal experience that I went through with my dad. We're talking about the neurobiological power of faith and how my dad's cancer journey was remarkably different from some of the stories that we hear. I thought that I would shed some light on his beliefs and how some things that he did helped him transcend the pain of cancer that he endured, because on his journey with this, from the diagnosis all the way until his death, his faith provided him with an inner peace, and it influenced the way his body responded to pain and suffering. I want to touch on that because, in a sense, my dad experienced a spiritual phenomenon. I was given the privilege to be able to eulogize my dad, and I spoke on how my dad beat the pain of cancer even during the eulogy. It was a testament of his divine alignment. There are several layers of his experience to explore here, and let's get into it. One of the things that I wanted to point out is this bracelet that my sister gave to me as a gift. It's a charm, and inside of the charm is a picture of our dad, and she gave it to me so that anytime I want to, in a sense, feel my dad with me, I can wear this charm bracelet. So I just want to shout out my sister. So thanks, Tyler. Not Tyler the music star, but Tyler, my sister, my older and my only sister. Let's talk about the mind and body connection. Research into the mind and body suggests that your mental and emotional state will influence physical sensations, and those physical sensations include pain. My dad was diagnosed with cancer actually on his birthday. That was January 27, 2021. He underwent a surgery on Thanksgiving because he was having abdominal pains. Now, my dad and I, somehow our bodies, things that we have endured over my lifetime, has been in sync with my dad. Years ago, when I was a small child, we were both hit by a car. We both had injuries to our left side. I had a left broken tibia and he had a left broken knee. We went through physical therapy together, and he would even tell me over the years that I challenged him to get better. First, we were both bedridden, and then we were both in wheelchairs, and then we were both on walkers, and then we were both on crutches. And we had that experience together, and then years later, we both were pretty much in good health. We didn't show any signs, any health-related issues. Even when my dad was diagnosed with cancer, the doctors would tell him that if it wasn't for the cancer, he will be still 100% in good health. And it was being in good health that the symptoms of the cancer went ignored, because he didn't have pain even as the cancer was metastasizing in his body. During that time, around Thanksgiving, when he was having these issues with his stomach, I was having issues with my stomach as well. We both underwent emergency surgeries. Mine came out cancer-free, his came out with cancer. When he was diagnosed with cancer, we were both sitting in a room together, and it was shocking. But my dad's immediate response, it wasn't one of uproar, it wasn't one of despondency. I turned to him to see what his response was, and he was just processing. When we left the doctor's office, my dad immediately said, like most people that have a positive mindset, he was going to beat this. He was going to beat this issue. As the reality of the situation became more prevalent, and then he had to undergo chemotherapy, he still kept a positive mindset. And his response to this cancer diagnosis was that God would use this experience. And he saw that this experience could be used to bring unity to our family. My family, made up of 5 of us, at that point, we were kind of living separate lives. And it definitely did unify us. It brought us closer together. When my brother and my sister found out, they immediately jumped on the bandwagon. When our dad went into surgery, they were right there, hands-on. My sister, she works as a nurse, and she wanted to be in charge of his health care. And so there was an immediate sense of unity amongst us. But talking about this mind and body connection, just to give an example, even in terms of the mind and body connection, when my dad died, I was in an enormous amount of grief. And I noticed that I began to have stomach anxiety. And someone that I was dating at the time, he was very negative in the situation at times, not all the times, but it became overwhelming to the point that when I saw him, I would have a physical response to seeing him. And we had to have a hard conversation, and me telling him, I'm grieving my dad, and when I see you, it's making me sick to my stomach. I read that your gut is like your second brain. Your gut will give you the physical sensation. Your body will respond physically to how your mental state is. And the grief and the anxiety that I was feeling was making me have a physical response, a negative response. My dad, his mental state, because his mental state was pleasant, his mental state was positive. He was able to see a larger divine plan as it pertained to his illness, that it allowed him to endure the harshness of his condition without succumbing to it. So the mind and body connection is extremely important. And then there's another layer which I touched on, and that is divine alignment and perspective. A lot of people that commit suicide, it's their perspective on their situation. It's not that they don't want to live, but they just want to escape the pain of what they're feeling. They feel trapped in their pain. They feel like there isn't any way out. With divine alignment, you understand that your soul journey, your life, your purpose is part of a greater design. My dad tapped into that very early on in his cancer journey, saying that there's a larger play at work here, something that is beyond my capacity, something that has to have some sort of divine intervention. And that was the unity with our family. When people are sick, they are able to let go of grievances, be more forgiving, extend more grace, or they're able to just forget about things that have happened in the past and just let's concentrate on now and let's move forward. In our case, that was the situation. As my dad was undergoing the treatment in itself was brutal. But I would see his resilience. He will take this treatment, it will break his body down, and within a few days, he will restore his body, back to as much health as he could. And he got around. He was always someone with a smile on his face. He never had a bad mental state. Like even throughout the cancer, he never operated with a negative spirit. There will be things that he would say, do you mind going to get this? Or do you mind doing that? I mean, of course I don't mind. And his pleasantness made me make sure that despite how I didn't feel like doing certain things, I empathized with him. And his pleasantness allowed me to show more grace, extend more grace to him. Sometimes people, when they experience illness and sickness, they become nags and bitter and harsh and condescending, and you kind of hate to even be around them. You feel like, hey, you need me more than I need you. But with my dad, he never had a nasty attitude throughout his cancer, and it allowed me not to mind doing things for him. I don't know if I would have did the contrary with my dad, just because of the fact that I would have done anything for my dad, anything within reason. When you are in divine alignment, there are three things that happen: trust, action, and surrender. You trust that things that are being revealed to you are being revealed for a greater purpose, something that serves and meets your needs, but meets the needs of why you're in this situation, why you are experiencing this circumstance. And so my dad, he trusted that this is part of the process. One of the things that I want to mention is that my dad, even though he surrendered to what was happening, he didn't surrender in death. He accepted what was going on, but my dad had a will to live, a determination to live. And that was one of the reasons why his body would break down and he would get back up within the next few days, because there are things he just wanted to accomplish in this world, more things, more impact. There were places that he wanted to go, places that he wanted to visit, things that he wanted to accomplish. And so he took action. He didn't just passively allow cancer to take over his body and then just die. Someone said to me when we were talking about my dad after he passed, it's just a shame, like your dad, it just gave up. And then I had to correct that. My dad did not give up. His body gave up on him, but his mind, he had a will to live. My dad has always had a strong will, a strong determination. He has always had firm resiliency that was just resonating with him, resonating in his decision making. And so mentally just giving up, he would never give up, because even the day that he died, we had plans. We were going to run errands. 2 days before my dad passed, I asked him, "How are you feeling? Are you experiencing any pain?" And he said, I don't have any pain, but I am tired. Another thing that happened to my dad is that 2 weeks before he died, he got COVID. And when I talk about the synchronicity between me and my dad got COVID, and then I got COVID. And it was a hard comeback for me. He didn't even experience as much of the symptoms that I experienced. I mean, every symptom that you check on with COVID, I checked all the boxes. But my dad was having one specific issue from COVID, and it was preventing him from eating the way he needed to. I told my dad, "You're weak because you haven't really been eating." And so it was just the deterioration of his body, but his mind was still there. Even when we met, my dad was saying, "I can probably try this. I can probably go this way. I can probably do this." We were still creating health strategies, holistic health strategies for him to be able to bounce back, in a sense. Divine alignment created an environment for him where he wasn't fighting against the condition, he was accepting of it. However, the action that was taking place was that he was still effectively making choices that will heal him. It's not to say that he just was surrendering to the illness itself. He was surrendering to what he felt was the greater plan from this experience. And so this acceptance allowed him to exist in harmony with the circumstance instead of being in complete resistance to it that would have allowed the pain to intensify. His journey with cancer was 2.5 years. And within that span of time, he remained upbeat. He had a positive outlook. He was one that felt that he would defy the odds of cancer. His high energy and his spiritual outlook shaped his experience. It allowed his body to function beyond the limitations that are typically imposed on severe illnesses. Throughout that 2.5 years, we went to the park, we went to the museum, we were always watching movies, we were active, we were getting out, we were running errands, we were moving around. I was working on a project and he was helping me edit the project. We never stood still. We were consistently active. He was consistently making an impact in my life. We were constantly having long conversations and talking about things that were happening even in my personal life. And he maintained a continuous faith throughout all of his appointments. God remained at the center of his life, and that gave him an anchor beyond his own physical strength, beyond what I can do, beyond what our family can do for him. It empowered him in a way that exceeded natural abilities. His energy and his spirit, his alignment and his perspective, it acted as a mental buffer from the physical toll of cancer in itself. You have a layer to my dad's experience that encompasses faith in neurobiology. I remember studying neurobiology in college, and it was actually my favorite subject. It put me on track to begin to keep up with brain research, but also I'm into the psychology of the mind. So I love the science of the brain and I love the psychology of the mind. But with my dad and this particular layer of his experience, again, faith and neurobiology were at work here. So spiritually, we know that there are beliefs that when one is in divine alignment, the soul and the mind will transcend physical pain. But from a neurobiological perspective, faith, prayer, and positive beliefs can activate certain parts of the brain that are associated with well-being and reduce stress, ultimately lessening pain perception. And it explains the reason why my dad didn't experience the pain that's usually accompanied by cancer. I believe that it was his connection with God that acted as a sense of divine protection around him. And he was covered from experiencing a lot of pain that's typically associated with cancer patients. This is not to say that people that experience pain from cancer, they have a disconnect from God. Not to say if something were to happen with me and I'm racked with a lot of pain, that I have a disconnect with God. I'm specifically talking about my dad's spiritual phenomena here, the things that were at play with his life. Part of his life may be to serve as a sort of testament to how being in divine alignment can manifest physically for you, and how being in divine alignment offers protection, not necessarily from suffering or illness, because ultimately my dad still passed, but from the burden of pain itself. He had a completely different experience from a lot of people, and a lot of it was my dad's character. My dad, he never turned away from his beliefs, even in the face of something as severe and serious as this grave illness. When he was diagnosed, life was giving him a 50-50 chance. And even in the face of something so difficult, his character reflects his spiritual strength. His ability to see the good in the situation and to stay in divine alignment is ultimately what allowed him to endure his experience. My dad experienced peace despite the physical suffering that was surrounding him. He was able to laugh and make jokes. I remember asking him one day, we went to go to one of his appointments, and I said, "Are you experiencing any pain? How are you feeling?" Because cancer had metastasized. And I asked him, "Are you experiencing any pain?" And he was saying, if I didn't see those scans, I would have never known that I had cancer. The pain existed for him for 3 weeks, and that was leading up to him knowing that he had cancer. He underwent the surgery, and from that point, he never experienced physical pain from cancer. There were other symptoms around the cancer that he struggled with. So I don't want people to take this video and say that his cancer experience was a hop, skip, and a jump, because like I mentioned earlier, the cancer treatment in itself was brutal for him. Having COVID, that was a brutal situation, and it was harder for me because, like I said, I checked all the boxes in terms of symptoms, but the things that he went through while his body was fighting cancer, those are things not to take lightly or that I want to dismiss down in this video. So it just shows you the character of a man that he was, to be able to have so many challenges going against him, and he still remained anchored in his faith. He still remained positive. He never took out his suffering on me. He never griped. He never called me out my name. He just didn't do those things, and they served as pillars and examples for me to live by. Even in his death, when my dad died, because we were so close, I grieved. Not grieved because I will miss his physical absence, but I grieved because I felt overwhelmed that I had the exceptional and rare experience of having someone like him in my life. Thinking about all the things that my dad sacrificed for me and the life that he gave of himself to me. Essentially, I was overwhelmed by that thought that I can have something so great and exceptional into my life. I was filled with gratitude, and I'm always filled with gratitude. Now I see that even a part of my dad's testament is he's a life that keeps giving. When he died, I felt there was a wellspring of wisdom that died with him. I felt it's just a shame that someone that was filled with so much divine wisdom and discernment and interpretation, intuition, was gone. I felt a sense of sadness in that I wouldn't be able to tap into answers from him that I would get from our long conversations. But I began to understand that at the same time, all the things that my dad imparted to me, they're still there. I immediately began to write down things that he will always say, just different bits of information that he would say. I immediately started writing those things down, and I'm going to share those things with you, things that my dad said, in a separate video, because as much as they greatly improved and impacted and edified my life, I want them to do that for yours as well. If I can leave you guys with anything, and that is, we see from my dad's life that while being in divine alignment may not eliminate suffering, but it transforms our relationship with it. For him, it allowed him to transcend pain and maintain an inner peace that was supernatural. So I hope that you can take lessons from my dad and lessons from this harsh experience and let it resonate with you. let it resonate with your spirit, and you can fine tune and adjust the way you perceive your own circumstance so that you won't be overwhelmed by it. One of the things that my dad would say to me in terms of harsh experiences that I was dealing with was that once you come into an understanding, you have an eagle-eye view on the situation. You can look down on the situation. It shifts your perspective, the way that you perceive things. And my dad's perception of his experience helped in terms of his journey as well. My dad understood that to the very end, he was in partnership with God. And even as he actively sought for healing with his own body, he never gave up hope. He never stopped hoping in hope. And that's a powerful lesson, even in itself, that to the very end, you trust that you are in alignment with your soul journey. And I take peace. It took me a minute to get here in terms of being able to process my dad's absence, but understanding that my dad's life has evolved, his purpose has evolved. I embody the essence of my dad and all of his life wisdom, everything that he imparted to me. He's still here, just as tangible as the bracelet that my sister gave me. I feel my dad's spiritual presence, and I take peace in my dad's spiritual presence, even when I still grieve his physical absence. I hope this video helped. Let me know what you think of this spiritual phenomenon that my dad experienced. What do you think about the neurobiological power of faith that played a part in my dad's experience? As always, if you want deeper understanding into character development or personal development, I will encourage you to purchase my book, that is Intentional Progress, Get Unstuck and Start Your Business Now. To stay up to date with the videos that will be coming down, things that I mentioned that I will talk about in separate videos, just hit the subscribe button right now. Definitely visit our website, that is www.TarynsBusinessHub.com. So thank you guys for watching. In the meantime, in between time, you'll see me in the next video.